on the beat.
Welcome back to the Supercoach Take podcast. Round 11 is over. A little bit of carnage to discuss. But yeah, we have a lot to talk about this week. The buy rounds, so much to discuss. You know, what's our best buy? Are we willing to make sacrifices? Are we trading around it heavily? Grundy will speak about. The defenders, Ridley and Daniel, a little bit off this week. Speak about them. Do we have to have Whitfield? And then the midfielders, Lockie Neal's coming back. Forwards, we got a whole bunch of value forwards here. They're all rubbish, but we'll speak about them anyway. And then we'll go over vice captains and captains. So joining us as always, Enno, how are you, mate?
Hey, George, what's happening, buddy? Big week this week. A lot to discuss. The buys. Have you prepared good for them? I hope you have, because I certainly haven't. I'm absolutely stuffed for the last one, but many are probably in the same boat. We hope so. Hopefully don't tank too much that round. Last week, wasn't that good. I know it wasn't good for any of us, so maybe we just skip right past that and introduce the other man, JD. He was pretty much a regular now. He's here with us every week. What's up, JD?
Boys, hello. Good evening. What's up? I mean, it's definitely not Supercoach scores or ranks. So, as you said, I know we might just move straight into the actual meat of the podcast.
Can I quickly say I just scored higher than both of you? So that's probably the first week this year and the only. So I'll just say that.
Yeah, well, we were speaking before the podcast that, you know, JD's bad buy is the middle one, and then your bad one is the last one, and then my bad buys are both of them. So it's not going to get much. We'll see what happens. It's going to depend on a few rookies being named, but we'll see how we go. But yes, I think we'll do better this week. But we'll see how we go. A lot of people have a lot of players playing, but the buy rounds. So we know that someone's going to struggle in certain rounds. I think most people are going to struggle probably in the round 14 one a bit more, just because we don't have Ruckman that round. We might have just Reeves to cover us, fingers crossed. And we are very dependent on Reeves playing as well. I did hear that Hawthorn might take a Ruckman in the mid-season draft, but surely they play Reeves. But that's another story. First thing we'll discuss on the buys, or Enno, after these buy rounds, do you see yourself going up or down in the ranks? How do you feel about how you're prepared?
Oh, it's optimistic to think I'll be going up. I don't have the top end primos, and probably missing one or two on each line. You know, Zorko in the forward line, Bont in the midfield, and probably Stewart and Mills in the back line. So, look, I hope obviously I go up, and from 5K I should hopefully start to make a move. But I mean, the buys is usually where I do. In past where I've actually had good seasons, the buys is where I've made up most of the ground. I'm sure you're the same, JD the same. It's the part that you've planned for, and then you just cruise through them after the first buy and set yourself up well for the back end of the year. But this year it's wishful thinking. That last buy round I've already got, I think it's 8 primos out. I think you're 8 or 9. It's just probably going to be a struggle, that one. I think I still feel 18. It's just that it won't be a very good 18. So hopefully I go up, especially in this first one. I think the first one I've still got a decent amount of primos. So hopefully rise this week and get by the next two. But look, for my team, it's not looking too good. How are you, JD? How are you shaping up?
Yeah, I think I'm going to move up during the buys. I'm pretty sure I will. So I think the Grundy news actually helps me, because next week, any team that was going to field 18 with Grundy is now going to be fielding 17 potentially. So I'm pretty sure it helps me. I'm currently looking at 20 this week, 19 round 13, and then 19 round 14 with the trades I've got planned out. But obviously things can change depending on which rookies are named, who gets dropped, whether you get a primo that gets injured. But yeah, I'm looking like I'll scrape just enough to have one spare each week, which should see me move up during the ranks, because I know a lot of people are going to be short on either around 13 or around 14.
That's good to hear, JD. For myself, first round will be fine. Second round, I think it'll be 17 to 19, depending on a few rookies being named. Last round, we won't speak about that. 16 best case. But yeah, I think I had Bo, CJ Atkins, planning to hold them throughout the buys, and then they all fell apart pretty much at the same time. So move on and just cop it and hopefully make up some ground in the first two. Now, Brody Grundy. Actually, before we go into Grundy, a lot of us are thinking about flipping a few plays in the buy, such as, Brayshaw in the midfield. They have the last buy in defence. I wish I was in that position because I'd love to turn Brayshaw into Josh Kelly, for example. Sorry, JD. Just with the Giants fixture coming up. But I'm personally going to finish. My plan is to finish the team with 3 trades remaining. How about you guys? Are you guys, going to go lower than that? And at what level do you think you'll be comfortable with trades remaining? We'll start with JD.
So I think I'm going to have 1 upgrade left at the end of buys, and I'll have 5 trades left. So I think that means I'll finish a full team with 3 trades to go.
Are you dependent on, say, bringing in Reeves and him making money, for example?
I don't think so. So with my 5 trades left, I've calculated I should have about 90,000 left over. And I'll still have rookies like Waitman, for example, that should be making money. So between Lockie Jones and Waitman, I think if both of those two can get up into the high 200s, I'll probably that should be fine for me. I don't think I'm reliant on like a Reeves or someone like that.
Okay, so you're in a reasonable position, I think. And what about you, Enno?
Pretty similar to JD. I think I'll end the buys with 1 left to do and 5 trades. So the decision as to where that last upgrade will be, probably should leave it for the forwards just due to price. But if it ends up being in the midfield, you're risking it a bit to an extent that you're not going to, you're strapping yourself to how high a primo you'll be able to get. Will it be 550? Will it? Probably won't be 600. So there's not a plethora of options in the midfield, and you really want your top end players there. And I'll probably already have I've got Brayshaw, and I'd probably chuck Laird in the midfield, which we can speak about later. But then am I getting in another sort of 105 average midfield? It doesn't sound too enticing, so I probably should get a mid and leave that last upgrade in the forward line, where there's a lot of cheap options that we've also noted down to speak about later. So I think I'm the same as JD. We've got Lockie Jones and Waitman, so hopefully, just fingers crossed, they can pump out some good scores, like Jones did on the weekend, and get to 300k is wishful thinking, but it's definitely possible for them both.
Okay, I'm the same. If I grab Bont, it'll be 2 trades left. If I grab someone else, like a Neil, it will be 3 trades left for the full team. I'm dependent on Reeves making money, though. Not great position, but might mean I'll have to wait till round 16 or so to get a final team. But yeah, I think 3 trades should be reasonably okay to have a finished team with. Still another 12 rounds to go, so there's a long way to go. I mean, we've already seen. I've had Grundy injury. We had Dunkley before, then Bose, Brayshaw, Guthrie, whatever. A whole heap of them can just pile on really quickly. So I mean, the short-term ones we hold, but hopefully no more long-term ones.
Yeah, I must say I feel uncomfortable having just 3 left, and I think that's probably the bare minimum you want to have for the last 8 rounds.
Yes, I agree. I think, look, for example, what if they stop playing MP in defense for whatever reason? Because they threw him in the midfield for a bit and he didn't do overly well. So stuff like that. But even if that happens, I might still have to hold MP if they give him a role change. But I think it'd be pretty stupid to take him out of defense. But yeah, stuff like that. But we'll worry about that in a few weeks. But I think 3 trades bare minimum. So Brody Grundy is out for 2 to 3 weeks. So we won't see Brody Grundy, I assume, till after his bye round. For me, this is a easy hold. I can see why some people would trade him. I know, JD, you were thinking about a few things with Grundy, because you only just found out just before the podcast, the Grundy news. What was your reaction to Grundy being out, and what do you see yourself doing with Grundy? Or if you're in a better position if you had excess trades, would that be something you're looking at to trade him?
Yeah. So, firstly, I was shocked because it was just 2 to 3 weeks, which seems a little bit strange for the type of injury where he's had, this pinched nerve. Eno, you were talking about the NBA, the basketball, how Luka had the same injury on the same day and he played the next day. But Grundy's out for 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And for me, I thought it was one of those things where it was either going to be really serious and he needed surgery and time off, or he'd basically be back out there next week. 2 to 3 seems really weird, but I'm not a doctor. So I guess then what do we have to think about? So how those 2 to 3 weeks are over the buys, right? So one of those weeks he was already going to miss anyway in round 14. Next week's best 18 and pretty much every team, even with him out, is still going to have 19 or 20 available. So it's not that big of a blow. And then in the middle round, we should have Reeves for cover at R3, assuming that you're trading in Reeves. So you're not missing out on someone on field then. So I think he's a really easy hold over the buys, and it's a bit of a no-brainer to hold. But if I guess the thing that we were kind of kicking around a little bit was if you wanted to push the chips all in and really risk it to try and rocket yourself up the ranks, what could you look at with trading at Grundy? And I think the problem is that the obvious options like Nick Nat are already up at a 585 price tag, which means you're only getting 40k from the downgrade for someone that's probably going to be more injury prone over the back end of the year. I think the only ruck that we figured out that you'd actually make a decent amount of money on would be O'Brien, where you make 170k, and that allows upgrades elsewhere. But you're then betting on Rob actually coming good and having good form over the back end of the year. So unfortunately, just with the ruck landscape, I can't really see there being a good Grundy downgrade option. Maybe you look at someone like Goldstein, who at least has the good buy. He has the history, and at 504k, he'd make you 123 grand. But his form really hasn't been very good. I think he's had maybe 3 or 4 100s out of the year so far, which is well down on prior numbers. He had that ankle issue a couple of weeks ago against Essendon as well. So, yeah, it's for anyone that's been playing Supercoach a little while. I think you'll remember in 2019 where trading gone out during the buys to Goldstein on the run home netted you a bunch of money, and I think you ended up point positive as well. So it was just this really amazing trade that anyone that got on it, including myself, had an amazing back half to the year, and you rocket up the ranks. I just can't see what the Grundy trader option would be that allows that to happen this year.
And are you holding?
Yeah. Mate, the Supercoach take community spoke for itself. We put the poll up today, 500 votes, 80% said hold. So I think that's the right call. JD went through it all. The options to downgrade aren't great, and if they are, you're not getting enough from it. And even so, Nick Nat's still a sort of an injury or rest sort of risk himself. Same with Darcy. His durability isn't too great. So the only option would be go down to CCJ. But I don't think that's obviously not plausible either. But especially not for us with the trades we have and how many upgrades we left. But someone like Baps in our Discord is 16th overall or 17th. His team's almost finished, but he has one upgrade left, which he probably can get done this week or the next, and he still has 15 trades or something. So it's ridiculous. So he could and get Grundy back later, but that's only a thing for him, For people like us who've sort of burned trades, I don't think so.
I mean, it's a pretty unique scenario. I don't think there's too many in that position. But if you were in that spot, then that is when someone like Todd Goldstein becomes really interesting, because during those round 13 and 14 buys where everyone's going to struggle, you're actually going to have a ruck playing for both of those games.
Yeah.
And that could potentially make you a lot of points, and then you can kind of swap back to Grundy once he's come back and dropped his price a little bit more, and you could end up making 100k and getting 100, 200 points over that period. So definitely an interesting option. But for anyone that's getting light on trades, it's going to only have 3, 4, 5 left after they finish their side. I just don't think you can do it. It's too big of a risk.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the list here, and I'm trying to get a gauge on the break evens. Peter Laddam's 370k, break even of 1. Lyset's out for a few more weeks.
How many weeks?
So you could do the trade, and then as Grundy drops 1, and then Laddam's rise, you would think, with his, what's he got, 130 in his system.
Yeah.
You trade back in 3 weeks, and you'd net points and money. if you have like a plethora of trades. So
do you know the timeline on Lysette?
wasn't it a month like last week? No, was he suspended for 4?
That's right.
I think
That's right.
because
That's right.
he hit
First sling tackle.
That's it. So I think maybe has he served 2 or was it just 1?
Well, I can't remember. When was
So it's probably a couple
I think he
weeks,
served
2 or
2.
3. So
Maybe you don't do that then.
it's probably not long enough. It's probably not long enough.
Do you just field CCJ for a bit? Maybe.
I mean, you could do CCJ and Reeves, or you could even look at holding Flynn if you're not keen on Reeves, or if Reeves doesn't get up from his shoulder knock.
I think people need to cash in Flynn now. So are you guys going Reeves this week or next week? Eno?
I think I'm going next week. Look, it doesn't really matter. It's what I think the decision for me is Bianco or Reeves, and I'm going to get the other one that I don't next week anyway. So I'm thinking just get Bianco. Sorry, this week for an extra. What am I thinking of? Score on field. I can loop in with RCD and hopefully get a better score. And he looked good in his first game, so that's probably my thinking. What about you guys?
And sorry, just to close out that Lysette conversation, he's already served 3 games. Geelong, which is their next match, is his last, and then he'll be back in round 14. So
that kills that.
Ladders has just the 1 more game, unfortunately.
Back to Reeves.
Reeves or Bianco, or what's your
I'm
thoughts?
going Bianco personally this week.
Yeah.
I know that people are going to be desperate though. I've got confidence. I can loop a bit if needed. But I'll be going Bianco. But if Reeves is not listed on the injury list, I think you could do it. But I still feel slightly uncomfortable, if you know what I mean, doing it. But chances are you'll be okay. Are you thinking the same, JD?
Because my buy is good this week, I'm trying to figure out how many of next week's trades I can front run safely. And so Bianco, I think, seems like an obvious one. I could get in a couple of the primos this week, like Whitfield and Stewart, but then they just sit on the pine. So I'd rather try and find playing trade-ins. And I kind of want to get the Reeves trade done this week, but I guess I could hold off a week, or I could find a way to hold that off. Because there is, I guess, a little bit of risk that the injury is worse than we thought, or that Hawthorn don't rate him as a ruck as much as the Supercoach community does. Because he's looked good, but obviously there's a bunch of stuff that goes into being a good ruckman in terms of around the ground and defensive work that we don't get all the vision for. So I guess there is a little bit of a risk going early on Reeves this week rather than waiting another week.
I did like Reeves' game. I saw him float back and take a few marks, which is exactly what you want to see. That's what Flynn does a bit. But yeah, I'll be waiting. But I think if he's not on the injury list, I think he could do it because people need that money ASAP. Now, defenders. Okay, so I brought in Ridley in this week. Strong regret. And also Daniel was a little bit iffy. So I know a few people would have Daniel. I think Ridley's the main one because he's 70% ownership in the top 5,000. I'm stressed about this pick now because it seems like the Bombers have sorted their defense, and I don't know what that means for Ridley because he wasn't rebounding. I couldn't see him on the screen anywhere, and when I did see him, he was sitting pretty much in the goal square.
Yeah.
On Liam Ryan. JD, you're a Bombers supporter.
Sorry, how did you pronounce that?
Did he say bummers?
I did say that. That's what we're saying in the Discord. Well,
that's what you say.
We have
there's one person says it at Discord, George.
Well, all I've heard for 2 weeks is Darcy Parish, so I can say whatever. JD, help us out on Ridley.
Yeah, it's really tricky because I guess we've talked a lot about how he was scoring really well at the start, which was through kickouts. And I can't find the tweet now, but it was from Fantasy Freako. And it was something like during those first 4 or 5 rounds, he had 51, I want to say, kickouts, and Redmond had 3. And since he's returned, it's more or less been an even split. So he's lost a lot of kickouts over that time. And
it's not the kickouts, though. It's the role now. I know he's going to have a reduction in kickouts, but now it's like he's not rebounding. Like, what's going on there?
Well, you said yourself, George, that the last couple of games he actually had been rebounding. It was just the game on the weekend that he hadn't. And I think this is quite similar to what happened in the GWS game, which was one of his other poorer scores for the year. In both of those games, his job was more or less to lock down the dangerous small forward. So the GWS game, he took Toby Green and followed him around, and West Coast, he took Liam Ryan. But against Freo and North the last couple of weeks, they didn't really have a small of the same caliber that was dangerous, that needed to be locked down or followed by Ridley. And so I think this might be a little bit of a pattern we see against taller forward lines, or where there isn't that super threatening small leaders for lockdown. He gets freed up a little bit and can do some more of the rebounding offensive stuff. But it doesn't look like, it looks like the team's not afraid to give him a hard lockdown role in other weeks and rely on Redmond, Hind, Heppel, Laverty even to do some of the exiting of defensive 50. So I just think we're going to see more of these inconsistent up and down games throughout the year, where he gets given different roles based on the opposition. And why you say it's not just kickouts? The kickouts helped hide that in the first 4 or 5 games, because when you're getting an extra 5 to 8 kicks a week just for free, and they're all long effective kicks, they end up being 20, 25 points. So an 84 against the GWS then becomes a 110, or a 64 this week, which wasn't great, still ends up being close to a 90. So I think it's a combination of those two things, from what I've observed, that are really hurting his scoring. And I can't see that changing throughout the rest of the year.
So what is he average for the rest of the year? I would be happy with 90.
I think you're selling him short. I would still put it at around the 100 range.
Really?
But,
okay,
yeah.
I hope so. Any thoughts, Enno? Any concerns with you?
I mean, the kickouts for me is the main concern. I still think just week to week, the matchups are going to sort of sort themselves out. Like not every week he's on a small forward. It has been the last, like, what was it, Heeney that sort of a few weeks ago, Ryan last week.
Toby Green.
Yeah, like he just, for some, he's just sort of their go-to guy with that matchup, I guess.
I mean, I'd love for Rioli to be playing for Richmond this week, because if he got the Rioli matchup, he'd put up a 110, 120, I'm pretty sure.
Not Maurice Rioli.
No. Yeah, the little Daniel. I saw Madden, the rookie, took about 6 intercept marks on him. So if he can do that, then I only imagine what Ridley would do. But I think Rioli's probably not Richmond's best 22 from here on out.
Nah, look, it's a concern, George, but I think he can still average 90 plus. So it's worrying, it's annoying, but at the same time, it's like we don't have an option but to hold him and just hope for the best.
Yep.
So,
and then Caleb Daniels scored 50 odd on the weekend. I think Daniel's still fine.
I think he was robbed.
I saw him at half forward a lot on the weekend, but it wasn't his position. It was just him pushing up. So again, it's Bailey Dale did literally everything in that defense. He was the only one that was doing anything. It was like Ridley was doing everything in the first few rounds. It was Dale doing absolutely everything. Didn't score super well, but I think his dream team was a hell of a lot better because he had a few clangers early. But I think Daniel will still be okay. I think he might go like 85 to 90 for the rest of the year, because he can score, like he gets around stoppages a lot, which is part of his natural game. So I think he'll be fine, but there's not much to say on that. But the role might be a little bit inconsistent at times because he has lost most of those kickouts.
He was robbed. Yeah, 26 and a goal.
Oh, really?
Look at his ratio. I don't know what happened with that score, but he was very stiff to not sort of score at least an 80. But Anyway.
Now, the next player is Lockie Whitfield. So when I'm trying to finish my team, I'm trying to because I'm in a bit of strife going for a forward at the moment. I'll speak about that in the budget forward options. But one thing that will not move is I will get Whitfield at, that is the number one priority, even over Bont, for example. Given Bont's price anyway. So we'll start with you, Enno. Are you bringing Whitfield in? And if you are, because I think you have 6 defenders, if I recall correctly, does that mean lead M8? What are you thinking?
No, so I do have 1 spot left.
Okay.
So, yeah, look, I know you've seen I really want to go Mills this week, but look, Whitfield will be in this week or next, no matter what, I think, for me too. If that means lead M8, it does. That's what I'll do. So I think he's got to come in. He's sort of also going to be a point of difference for the back half, and that fixture is, I know you've said it a million times, it is absolute cake. So, it looks brilliant. He looked good on the weekend, even in the losing side. Just 30 touches is just what he's going to have in that back half. So, he's back to his... Look, he started a bit slow the first couple of games back. It was butchering a little bit, but only 2 clangers in the weekend, 86% efficiency. That's beautiful. So, I think he's coming in for me. I don't think the strategy to get him this week and sit on the bench is look, it's fine, but I don't think I'll be doing it. And so I think next week at 502, he'll come in. You, JD?
I'd been planning to get Whitfield basically ever since his injury. He's my last defender. So, I've been holding off a spot for him for a long time now. So, I'll absolutely be picking him up. I think he is really great value at his price. And if you've got a spot, you should be getting him. Now, would I put Laird to M8 to do that? I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah, like you could. If you were struggling for money, you could. But I just think that when we're going to get Neil for 580k, I'd probably rather put the 80k on and get Neil than I would have like Laird at M8 and Whitfield in my defence. That's effectively what you're comparing. Would you rather have Whitfield for 500k or Neil for 580?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I think, probably Neil. Neil will speak that soon. That's going to be an interesting one.
It's close, and obviously Whitfield has a good buy, and you can bring him in sooner and stuff. But, I don't think it's a call that could go either way.
I'm happy to sit him on the bench this week. But I think if you're going Whitfield M8, you're probably comparing him to the 500k forwards, which is like Callan Ward, Lockie Hunter, Ollie Wines is 520. I think Taranto's coming down a bit. So I think Whitfield's the pick of the bunch amongst those guys. But if you can pay up for 580 Neil, then I'd go that route. But yes, I think definitely need to get him in. Now the midfielders, okay. As we said with the Giants fixture, it is a bit of a cakewalk the next few, even to the end of the season. Josh Kelly, how many times has he scored 200 on Carlton? I think twice, if I recall correctly, or at least once. I know there's still some concerns with a few injuries coming back for the Giants, but Josh Kelly at 560k, 5-run average of nearly 120. I think that was how many weeks ago did you trade him out again, JD? Was it 5?
Oh no! It genuinely probably was.
Traded him out the week before he's 60, whatever it was. 69, was it?
Okay, so it's not too bad then.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's still not great. Like, and I got Walsh for him, which was fine. But I mean, who was to know that Leon Cameron would finally figure out how to coach the week after?
And they've been really good since. So it's crazy, isn't it, Leon? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's actually genuinely nuts that super coaches can figure out how to coach that team better than Cameron can, and he's got a job. Just think about that. Everyone in the world, everyone and their dog was calling for that switch to be made from like week 2 or 3, and he only did it once he was forced to by injury.
It's not like it's something that hasn't had evidence in the past of it either. You know what I mean? Like he has. He has info on it. He knows. I don't get it.
At one point, he was going to be the next best player in the league, better than Bont, etc., etc. And it's just anyway. Let's move on because I could get stuck in a loop here and we just won't finish the pod.
So you're not bringing him in?
I'm not bringing Josh Kelly. It hasn't crossed my mind.
Well, it's actually crossed mine, to be honest. Mainly because of the buy as well. I don't think I can do it.
George, you're a man of ideals, right? You're a man of principles. And can I just say, as soon as trades have gotten tight, money's got a little bit cheap, all that has gone out the window. Houston last week, Josh Kelly this week, and I mean, I watch YouTube vids. I watch them every week, and I must say, Heeney, that was a surprise. That was a surprise for me. So you needed to do some explaining because things have gotten real funky the last couple of weeks.
Houston looked good on the weekend, George.
He did. Look, when you're in a position where money's an issue, everyone's an option. You look everywhere. It's like exploring the mines, but for Supercoach picks. Looking absolutely everywhere for gold, but there's all rubbish. Okay, so we'll move on. Lockie Neal. I'm not sure on Lockie Neal. So first of all, his back needs to be better. Now he's had 6-7 weeks off. You would think that back issue is gone now. With the problem with Lockie Neal is I think a lot of people want to get him in the last bye round. So I think probably the bigger question is he's actually a chance to play this week, but for some reason I think Chris Fagan said it's smarter to wait a week for Lockie Neal. So I think because JD, you're planning for Lockie Neal, are you going to go in around 14 or afterward? What are you thinking for Lockie Neal?
I'm going around 14. Even if it's his first game back, I'm going. Yep. His break even, I think, is like 97, 98, something like that. They play North that week, and he was scoring all right, carrying the back issue. So having 6 weeks off, he should be ready to go straight into premium scoring. Now, it may not be prime 130 Neal, but I would be expecting him to get back to 120 plus, and at 580k, that's a bit of a bargain.
Any interest, Enno?
Look, if I can get to him, I think I will. That's probably the one guy that, for his price, is like JD said, that's for what he can do and has in the past. That's a very, very good deal. 580k. It's just the sort of you have to go that week. I think with a 90 odd break even, and it's a little risky to go a bloke first week back after a big injury layoff. So, but I guess this game is about risk. So nothing against, and he was aiming for this week, I think he said on radio a few weeks back. But yeah, the coach shot that down. But that must mean he's pretty much ready to go, and they're just going to take it, extra cautious, take the bye off, and come back afterwards and play at the back half for a big, flag tilt. So I think it's a very, very good option. It's just you got to go it that week. If that's the question, I think especially against North, the 140 and he's 600k again, and probably gone. So yeah, definitely if you have him in your plans, that's the week to get him. It's just a little risky.
I think you could wait a week and pay the extra 20k possibly.
Oh, it obviously depends on your situation, but
yeah,
I'm not splash for cash.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about it. I'm still not sure what I'm doing with trades in terms of premiums I'm bringing in, but that's for another day. I think it's okay to bring him in around 14, though. I think it's Lockie Neal. He should be right. But I want to hear a bit more in the media of what Chris Fagan says. Because I think Lockie Neal said he's basically ready, but they're being conservative. Now, onto the forward line. So the forward line is... We've been saying how bad the forward line is for ages. It's actually not that bad anymore. Hall's popped up. Bolton's back. Dale's upped his scoring. Hawkins is still there. So the first thing we'll look at is we'll go players in certain price ranges. So we'll go the 500k players. So the 3 that we've got here is Bailey Dale, Shea Bolton, and Tomahawk. Can you guys order these? Start with, in the order of which you would prefer.
I would prefer
Bolton, Dale, Hawkins. Yeah.
I think for me, it's Dale number 1, just because of the role that he's going to have for the back half of the year. Maybe he won't score, as these other 2 guys can have big back halves of the year and outscore him. I just think for what his role is, and it's still a nice price at 500, he would be my number 1. I think this is tough for me. I think Bolton's probably 2. Again, because of role, and he really good in the weekend. I know you're a little worried that his CBA is probably gone. He probably won't spend much more time in the middle at centre bounces. A few here and there, not as many as he was used. He was getting before he went out, but he can still do it all up forward, and he still pushes up the ground, and he's a super talent. So I think for me, he's 2, and then Hawkins would be 3, but Hawkins could easily be number 1, as a key forward, he can just have a couple of big blow-up games. There was like a 200 last year on Port that he had. All it takes is one of them, and his total score, provided all these guys play every game, can be the most of these 3. But I think the order is the way we've written it: Dale, Bolton, and Hawkins for me in that order.
Did you say he scored 200 on Port?
Yeah, last year. I mean, obviously, 2020 scoring is a little. You don't
Still.
take it to 100%.
Plays Port
But
this week.
yeah, I mean that's probably not going to happen again. But it shows that he can against any team. And he's been in super form for 2 years. It's funny that I had him in 2019 back half, and he did nothing for me. But I looked at it today, the last 28 games, so this year and last, he's averaged 102. So he's pretty consistent. He doesn't miss games. Pretty nice, but there's always a risk with the key forward, of course, especially for 12 weeks.
JD, what are you thinking?
Are we including buys in this conversation, like my buy considerations, or just...
Sure, that's realistic, so yeah.
Okay, I'd take Hawkins, then Dale, and Bolton.
Okay.
Just simple as Hawkins is going to help me in my worst buy, which is middle buy round. So I can't consider Dale or Bolton, but if I was, I'd pick Dale over Bolton.
Yeah.
I think, we all think the same there. I think Dale was taking even more responsibility. That's not to say that others will step up going forward. But I just thought Dale looks really, really good. They're relying on him more and more as weeks go on. And I think he's clear AFL ratings. I know I keep mentioning these stats, which don't mean much to people, but he's clear first general defender. 10-15% of the ahead of the next best. So stats don't lie, I guess. But Dale first.
He's the quarterback. He's at the back of every stop. He just pushes. They always look for him, and he always kicks it long, which is what you need.
Yep. Dale first, Bolton or Hawkins. I don't know. I think Bolton and then Hawkins. Anyway, so now the budget forward options. This is a little painful to speak about. So I'm in the position where I sort of need to take a budget forward if I want Lockie Neal. But anyway, are there any... I'll roll off a few names here. Sorry, try not to laugh. Taron Thomas, Taylor Walker, Kyle Langford, Isaac Heeney, Robbie Gray, all around 400k. Do any of these names, start with you, JD, any of these names entice you in the slightest? What are you thinking?
So Thomas sounds like a bit of a meme pick. Tex Walker, I owned. I'm not going back to the well on that one. I think you're going to see more of the same, where he'll have some good stretches, but then he's going to have down games and need rests. So I just don't think he can do it. Langford is a more interesting one, just because he's been given more inside mid time over the last 2 or 3 games, which has helped his scoring. He's played okay, but I'm a little unsure as to why he's getting that mid-roll. Is it just because Stringer's been out and he normally demands the CBAs instead, and once Stringer's back now, for a couple of weeks, he'll take over that spot again, and Langford will go back out to the wing and kind of resume worse scoring? I'm not really sure. It's probably, as a Bombers fan, something I should have been watching a little bit more closely, but I just never considered him as a Supercoach pick, and I haven't really watched him for that reason. And then Heeney, I guess, is the one that, considering the most, a bit of FOMO after not getting him last week. And I'm still on the fence, because getting a 400k player like him helps my buys and completing my team massively. But he's had 3 pretty serious injuries this year already. He's not fully fit. And I think his scoring is not only dependent on his own health, of course, but on Buddy's. And Buddy's body is, really starting to fall apart with his age. So I'm not sure. I might, I don't know. And then Robbie Gray is the last one, who has been an absolute soldier of the game for many, many years now. And at a 424 price tag, that's obviously quite cheap. His last couple of games, he's dropped some decent scores with the 118 and the 104. But he's been really up and down across the course of the year, and we've seen it in the last couple of years. So I'm just not sure if I want to take the gamble on him. Their fixtures, all right. I think they've got 2 or 3 hard games in the Cats, the D's, and the Dogs, but almost every other game looks like a win. And you'd imagine a fair few might end up being played at Adelaide Oval if this COVID situation continues to persist. So, he's somewhat interesting. Like, are you looking for a ranking or just like are any of these worth considering? Where's your head at, George?
I need help. Don't know. I don't want any of them.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, okay, say if you had to pick one, who is it?
I think it's probably Heeney. Just because the price and he's got the scoring history. Yeah, the betting on him staying healthy is rough, especially with us running out of trades. But I think that's the one that makes the most sense to gamble on.
Okay. Any of these players take your fancy?
No, not at all. Oh man. Yeah, I mean, look, Tex is the bloody one that's like for us owners that sort of, if you traded him out before those two really bad scores, then well done. But he sort of got that rest that he probably very, very much needed, and he's come back and looked like the first 2-month Tex that he was. So he's just not one I'd trade in, but maybe that rest has helped him. The Crows actually look kind of decent. They play in pretty much shootouts, though. It's sort of end-to-end games. That game of the weekend just felt like a goal every 20 seconds. So that definitely helps a big key forward if he just kicks to 3 or 4 each week. But you can't be doing that for the back end. It's got to be Heeney if you had to pick one. But it's just so... He's a star. I love Isaac, don't get me wrong, but is he going to play out the rest of the year? That's a 50-50, I reckon. And without 50-50. Trades. What would you put it at?
Like, which player I'd take out of these?
No, what would you put the Heeney percentage at playing out the year?
I think he misses 2 games and averages 80. So averages 90.
Okay. So you need the cover if you were thinking about him, and that doesn't look great, especially with Combin that we have and Waterman.
So, yeah, that's not good. Cover is not going to work.
That's not good.
Especially because I have Aaron Hall as well, who I think will be fine, but it's doesn't have perfect history. So yeah, I think you guys are right. Taron Thomas getting more mid-time, but he's young, played rubbish teams, plays for a rubbish team. Taylor Walker, similar boat to Heeney, probably needs 1 or 2 games off, but less reliable role, less trustworthy, because I know Heeney will score. He'll have a few down games, but he'll have those big games. Langford's interesting. I just don't know if they keep playing him at centre bounces. And then Robbie Gray, well, we all love Gray, but, is he anywhere between 80 and 90, most likely on the lower scale of that. So I think it's Heeney or nobody. But I don't think I can do Heeney because of my bench situation. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to grab Whitfield this week instead of Heeney. I'll give up on Heeney because of he had a broken thumb. But it was just a reminder that that's Isaac Heeney. He'll just get injured at any point. So it's too much risk for me, most likely. But yeah, I'll just go with Whitfield this week and delay my problem until next week and not have a solution. We'll go to rookies now. So I think there's 2 really interesting ones, Bianco and CCJ. I'm going early on both. Both I think will have good job security. Now that Taylor Adams is out, that should help Bianco. Possibly Finn McRae, who didn't really do himself many favours, but he was on limited game time, being the sub. And then CCJ, I thought he was pretty good. Last quarter faded out a bit, but pretty good is probably an understatement. He was really good. Not going to kick 4 goals every week, but I believe in the VFL they said he was averaging like 20 touches a game and kicking a few goals. So, do you think CCJ stays in the team when Lynch comes back in?
Oh, that's too hard to say. Yeah, that's really hard to say. He was super poor in the first quarter, and then the second and third, it was like a completely different player. He was dominating. So, I mean, it's good to see that there's been a lot of hype about him. I always hear about him, and I don't, I never knew why. But that second and third quarter, sort of showed me why, because he's got a bit of talent. So, he'll definitely play, obviously, for the next few weeks. It's I just don't think I'm going to go in this week. I'll probably go Bianco for sure, and CCJ probably just wait and see how he goes his second game. Maybe another big game, and then it's probably too hard to pass up. But I think the 40k might be pretty pivotal for me. So I'll just wait and see if another rookie pops up that I can grab, later next week or whatever. And if they do, I'll go them. But if not, or if CCJ has a big blow up game again, then I'll probably go him. But I can wait a week on that.
What about you, JD? Are you going early on one or both or neither?
So the ones I'm likely to go early on are Bianco and Reeves. CCJ once again has the bye that's bad for me, so it makes most sense to wait until round 14, make sure he's named, and then bring him in then.
True, you can wait too. Yeah, I forgot about the bye as well. So yeah, you can wait too. To hope for another one.
I think a lot of people want them downgrades now, especially for myself, who is McNeil and Scott both got to go. I think. I'm going early on both because I think their job security, at least short term, up till the buys in a few weeks after, is pretty good. So I'm happy to go both, but they both look really good. Bianco, I thought, was getting really busy early. Looked really good. So I think that's pretty much it for rookies. I think there's one more. Was it Rosas from Gold Coast? Small pressure forward.
Just quickly on CCJ, just note that Chol was the one that was sort of doing the second ruck. So
yeah, I noticed that.
He was pretty much a forward in the team. Whether that means anything when Lynch comes back, Chol probably... One of them goes this week, and based off performance, it probably can't be CCJ. So Chol probably goes out this week. Depends on team balance, but just note that he was pretty much forward the whole game, so he wasn't getting that sort of relief ruck role. Don't know what that means. Yeah, we completely changed up our structure, so yeah, I don't really have a read on it.
Yeah, I'm just looking now. He had 2 hit-outs because I noticed that because when Nank went off the ground for a bit in the first quarter, I'm like, oh, okay.
Chol was straight in.
Yeah.
But I don't. Yeah, who knows what Dimmer will do? We completely changed the structure by bringing in, a couple tools. So yeah, Essendon's back line. It's probably tall again. Maybe we go it again. Not sure.
Yeah, okay. That leaves me slightly worried if somehow Chol has a massive game this week. But you can't... I suppose it's probably good because it means that CCJ is replacing Lynch. Like, Chol's not replacing Lynch, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'll be going both early anyway. Now, we'll finish up with captains and vice-captains. So we have less options this week. Although the main captain options, the Dogs... The Dogs and the Demons, we lost Grundy, so they're the main ones, I think. So for me, it's pretty straightforward. It's Oliver against Brisbane Friday night. So Brisbane seem to leak a lot of points in the midfield despite their midfielders all getting 30 touches a game. And then I have McRae. So McRae against Freo, last match of the round. I know Sarong tagged once or twice, but I don't think that'll happen. Oliver into McRae for me, but it's worth noting that Laird played... he scored 170 on Collingwood this week, so that could be kind of your smoky. Last year he scored 170. Yeah. So it could be a smoky, but I think I'll go safe, go with the pack, and go Oliver into McRae. And what are you thinking?
I just looked at it. I mean, the guy with the 163 round average and the 145 5-round average, I don't think you can really swerve that as a VC. So, yeah, it'll be him. And then I was tempting maybe if that, for whatever reason, doesn't work, maybe Walsh against the Eagles, who Essendon absolutely beat up in the midfield. TK's injured, so there's another guy out. Yo sort of underdone, didn't get a lot of game time. Shuey's out. They're really struggling in the midfield at the minute, even with Nick Nat sort of dominating. So, he would maybe be the backup C, but again, probably McRae against Freo is just safe as a backup C if Clary doesn't work.
JD?
I think you two have covered it off perfectly. I was somewhat interested in Steele against the Swans as well, especially coming off a 150. But, there's a chance that Sydney put some time or work into him, given that he's really the only performing St Kilda player for this year. And I'd much prefer the Oliver into McRae or even having a look at Walsh over Steele, but he would be the other option if for some reason you don't have any of the others.
Yep. So Oliver into McRae for all of us, it seems.
Maybe Parrish. If you had Parrish against the Tigers, that would be a good one, maybe. as a backup, C.
Parish is such an interesting pick because he's getting the time on ground and the minutes in the midfield now, and he's just absolutely gone berserk.
Well, this is, by the way, another one of those ones where every Essendon fan had been complaining about this for years under Warsall. For years. There's so many articles, blog posts, whatever, podcasts that have been written about why don't we put Darcy into the midfield 24/7? Because every time he'd done it, he'd put together efforts like this. And then finally it happened this year, and I just don't know how you move him back out now. Unfortunately, I think Shield has to find another position in the team because Parish has gone past him in a big way this year. And it's really good to see for those that obviously don't follow Essendon as close as I. He was the draft pick after Oliver. And so we've seen how amazing Clary has been as an inside mid ever since year 2. Parish was drafted to be the same position, just had a slighter frame. So some room for upside and development once he filled out. And it's finally come together this year. But it's been a long journey to get there. And I'm just glad we finally reached it.
After 4 games, you claiming it?
It's been more than 4, right? Because the first one was Anzac Day, which was around
5 or 6 weeks ago. So
yeah.
No, I'm very happy for Parish. He's looks unreal. But is he? What do you see him averaging for the rest of the year, JD?
Oh, this is tough. I really hate rating my own players. So I think where he's averaging at is well overs for what he'll do for the rest of the year because he's 5 round average must be like
it's 130 and then 3 rounds 140.
Oh my, yeah. So let's put him back down to 115. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking.
That's pretty huge.
Pretty bloody good.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Thank you, Enno.
Thanks, mate. Cheers for having me.
JD, glad to have you on board.
Thanks for having me again, guys. Up the Dons.
Go Crom.
Let's go,
Almost
Tigers.
beat the Tigers, but we'll see how we go.
Almost beat the Tigers. What a sign
time.
off. What a sign off. Oh, this is the defeatist attitude of the pod. We almost won.
They got their win last week. That was the win.
Very well. Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone, and see you guys next week.